Hello investors and welcome back to Just Randy Stocks. During this video, I want to talk about NuBank, or ticker symbol NU, which is a Brazilian-based neobank or fintech financial technology. NU expects to list on the public exchange or have its initial public offering on 12/9/21, which is this Thursday. A price range between $8 to $9. Now, NuBank revised its F1, which was originally, it was supposed to go public between $10 to $11. So why would they go down on the price? The demand for global neobanks is it diminishing? They don't want to have an oversupply and they want to draw more interest for this IPO. Now, where is the sentiment given the latest with the Omicron variant, rising interest rates, the economy, and oil prices? This could also be a reason why they came down on the price. Now, this video is not intended to tell you what to buy, whether to wait, do what you want, but I want to give you some reasons why I believe this could potentially be a wait and watch. Now, most of these IPO launches have been skyrocketing up on day one, but the majority of them have not been holding their gains. And let's take a look. I wanted to take you real quickly to the IPO access page on Robinhood. If you have this as your brokerage account, it shows you 23 items that were either in flight or launched. Now, the one that we're talking about is NU, but 22 have launched. 22, and out of those 22, less than 5, less than 6. So there's 6 here that are in green. And I know Brilliant Earth dropped down below its IPO price, but the point that I'm trying to make is less than 6 of these were a value buy. And pay attention to the sector. Is it better to wait and watch, or is it better to buy at the IPO price? So I just want to make sure you take a look at that and just have that as a consideration. I'm not telling you not to buy this IPO price, but a lot of these launch off very strong and then they fall off immediately or go under. So if you don't plan on taking immediate profits, then you just want to be aware that most of these drop off, with the exception of cloud. So those two are cloud plays. We got blockchain, jewelry, language play, and then I believe this is medical clothing play. So I just want to make sure I brought that to your attention. So how overvalued is the company and how quickly can they grow into that valuation? There's expected to be 4.6 billion Class A and Class B shares outstanding following the offering. That will value the company at about 36.9 billion to 47.1 billion on a non-diluted basis, depending on how many over allotment shares the underwriters buy. So underwriters do have the opportunity to buy additional shares, where the IPO price lists within that forecast range. So we don't know exactly what the list price is going to be. So there's still some unknowns, but NuBank plans to use the money for working capital, operating expenses, capital expenditures, and possible acquisition. So acquisition could cause them to fit into their valuation, and then other general purposes. So I do believe that this company is going to attract some attention because it raised $750 million through a round led by Berkshire Hathaway at a $30 billion valuation just a few months ago. Now that would be $7 to $17 billion more than just a couple of months ago, and nothing really fundamentally changed since the Berkshire Hathaway round that was led. Now, Colombian businessman David Velez founded NU with the mission statement of fixing a dated Brazilian banking system. It is estimated that tens of millions remain unbanked in Brazil, so the opportunity remains large as the increase of smartphones and the move towards digital overall still takes shape in Latin America. Last year, NuBank was number 2 of 20 most valued independent neobanks, right behind Chime, which is expected to go public in March of 2022. There was a case study completed by the Harvard Business School that explained the demographic of NuBank. And according to that study, customers were largely people between the ages of 18 to 35 who make $200 to $1,000 a month. So I believe there is this large underserved population that 20% of them had never had a credit card before. So, fintech companies typically offer mobile focused banking accounts with eye catching features such as low cost credit or cashback rewards. Some offer loans, credit cards, or investing products. From 2018 to 2020, neobanks skyrocketed from 60 to 256 worldwide. There were just so many of these popping up. With all of this competition, it's really important to understand the features the business offers to its customer that enables it to differentiate from itself. For example, high yield savings or services that are free. Now, a major way that the business was able to differentiate itself was customer service. And from what I understand, Brazil was terrible when it came to customer service. At one of these banks, they had to buy a package or an account that would have monthly services. So it included a number of wire transfers, checks, and every time a customer would want to use one of these services, they would deduct it from the package. Now, if they surpassed the limit, they would get charged an overage fee, and NuBank separated themselves by not charging these type of fees. The company started with a credit card, and this allowed them to build a foothold in the market as they worked to get a presidential decree for a banking license, which they received approval in 2017. Now, today they offer bank cards, debit cards, peer to peer payment via Pix, which is a Brazilian equivalent of Zelle, and loans, rewards, and life insurance, and an account and credit card for small business owners, in addition to its original credit card offering for individuals. Now, in 2019, NuBank had 10 million customers and 962 million in revenue and opened a tech office in Berlin. In addition to operations in Brazil, they launched a credit card in Mexico, Colombia, and opened engineering offices in Argentina, Germany, and the United States. Now, the first thing that I want you to look at that I'm not going to have enough time to go through in this video is the McKinsey Global Banking Annual Review that came out at the beginning of this month. It was just recently completed. It was an annual review which analyzed 150 financial institutions globally, and NuBank was mentioned in there as a disruptor. So the biggest concept that I wanted to give you as a takeaway from reading that annual report was the divergence. And the review included bank specialists and fintechs, and they included four sources that contributed to this divergence. So this huge merge of big banks versus everyone else at the lower end, and how this divergence was going to continue to separate. And the way this was going to happen was concluded by four sources that were going to contribute to this further divergence of market share and revenue and assets. The geographic location of these financial institutions and their emerging markets post pandemic, so that 12 to 24 period time frame of where they really take off, where we're starting to get at the end of the 24 period of the initial pandemic that happened, but now we're starting to see potentially another one. I think we're really prepared for it though. Their relative scale, Asia, Latin America, these larger, more cost efficient scale. So by the fact that this business, NuBank, is expanding into other areas, they will ultimately become more cost efficient in the long run. And their segment focus and the business model deployment. So there was four areas. Be sure to check those out. I think that's a really good read for your due diligence and looking at the banking industry, and it was just published. Now, the largest Latin American banks are in four countries: Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and Chile. So we know that this new bank is expanding to three of those four areas. So there are a few risks that I want to close out the video with. Now, they did have, and you would expect the company's not going to be perfect, right? But they did have some accounts in August of 2020 that were inaccurately low balances that they reported, but they've still been able to keep a very high rating with their customers. So, they were pretty forgiving. So, now, the last thing I want to do is I want to close out with some of the programming language comments about the company. So this is something that I don't know that a lot of people are going to talk about, but I could see it as a potentially pretty significant risk if they do not wrap their arms around this. And I do believe that they are. It looks like they are. Now, Facebook uses React as its programming language. In Silicon Valley, it might be popular to use Python or Ruby. But the CTO of NuBank decided to use Clojure. And here's why it's important to know about Clojure and maybe do a little due diligence on this. Clojure is different enough to require significant investment and training to use effectively. Now, Clojure is a Lisp dialect and it separates data and it's very visually appealing, and I can understand why Edward WeBull, when he first came on as CTO, and he was one of the original co-founders of the business. Now, he has decided to step down, and they hired in April Matt Swan, who took over as the chief technology officer to accelerate the innovation pace of the business. So it seems like the timing is right where they were doing this expansion. I believe they started to run into a lot of scaling issues and bug issues with their platform, and they needed to bring someone else in. And as Edward WeBull stepped down, he assumed the direct position of technological platforms. He wanted to return to work to contribute more directly with the company's systems and infrastructure. An old personal wish is what it says. But I think he's fighting the fires of using this programming language that when you start to hire people and you're expanding, that people aren't typically familiar with this language. So I believe in the long run, it may be beneficial, but as you use this programming language to try and connect with other things, it could be complicated and lead to a lot of scaling issues and bugs. So on September 9th of 2021, NuBank launches a reward program for ethical hackers in partnership with HackOne. The initiative aims to detect potential loopholes before they materialize as a cyber issue. The researcher performs a code security analysis identifying the bugs, reports it to the HackerOne platform, and in return receives a financial reward. This is all on their website, or a bug bounty. So they have this built in. Now, this isn't something that I'm really concerned about specifically that they started this program. I think that this is something that Apple does. I think they, invest money to make sure that if people are willing to report these bugs, then ultimately it says, in this case, NuBank will have to fix the bugs that are mapped to the app. So in the short time that Matt, the new CTO that's been there in the company, has established three key priorities: further invest in our engineering talent strategy, improve the current and future definition of our technological platform, which they're using this, different programming language, which I would tell you to look into. So Clojure. And then the last one is to partner with the business to evolve our ways of working and improve the end-to-end delivery cycle, including improving transparency and the rigor around capacity planning, prioritization, and decision making. Now, ultimately, when you want to push through an update on these digital platforms, you need to be able to do it quickly, efficiently, without bugs, and ultimately in a digital world, you do not need to be open to cyber attacks or to leak people's personal financial information. And there's just some risk in that area. I think they're working towards fixing it, but I think the programming language might have been a mistake on the front end and something that they're going to have to work through. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what your comments are in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.